Hey, Vinny, what are you listening to?
Oh, hey, Matt. I'm just enjoying some of my favorite tracks from Seinfeld, the original television soundtrack, the new album from Water Tower Music featuring over 40 minutes of music composed by Jonathan Wolff.
Over 40 minutes? That's a lot of potatoes.
It sure is. And it's perfect for any Seinfeld fan to revisit some of their favorite moments. Want to dress up and do Kramer's pimp walk from the Wigmaster? Or how about reenacting Jerry and Newman's chase scene from The Soulmate? You can even record your own outgoing voicemail message like George did in The Susie.
Vinny, I'm thinking of starting a reality bus tour. Is there anything on the album for me?
Might I suggest Kramer's crappy banjo from the Muffin Tops? It's all here on the Seinfeld original television soundtrack, which you can find across all digital platforms.
Oh, Vinny, this new soundtrack of yours is scratching me right where I itch. Come in.
Hey, guys.
Seinfeld music composer Jonathan Wolff, what are you doing here?
I saw your light was on, and I decided to pop in.
Wait a second. How do we know you're the real Jonathan Wolff?
Could the fake Jonathan Wolff do this?
He is the composer of Seinfeld and 74 other primetime network series, 44 of which he's written the theme songs. After retiring from Hollywood in 2005, he has been a frequent guest lecturer and performer at colleges and universities, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, to name a few. And he's here today to talk about his new album, Seinfeld, the original television soundtrack. Jonathan Wolff, welcome to Seincast. How are you today?
I am so happy to be here with you guys. Welcome back to your podcast. We have all missed you.
Aw, big
So
missing
sweet.
going on. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's good to be back.
So much time and distance between the Seinfeld production years when I was working on it every week and now has passed that now I view the whole show and all the elements and the episodes differently. I'm a Seinfeld fan just like you, so I appreciate what you're doing here.
Well, I do want to thank you so much for being here and for indulging us and doing a little bit of acting at the top of the show, that cold open. It got us wondering, actually, did you ever act on Seinfeld? Did you ever have a cameo other than your music?
People tell me I have the perfect face for radio. When we were in post-production for the finale, Larry David, who is not a real sentimental boss, asked me that same question if I had ever made a cameo on-camera appearance. And I gave him the same radio face answer. I had just seen Larry at a gathering where Jerry, in his little speech, acknowledged those Seinfeld team members who had worked on every single episode with him. I think there were 4 of us. The other 3, yes, had done walk-ons, but not me. So, at the final mix for the final episode, in the final scene where Jerry's doing stand-up in prison, Larry walked me into the recording booth and invited me to throw in with an audio cameo. Jerry asks, anybody from Cell Block D? And I responded, I am. Yeah, here's where you insert applause and, A Star is Born stuff. So yeah, that's the only time I was on camera or in an actual episode of Seinfeld.
Fantastic.
I got to
great.
tell you, Jonathan, you nailed that scene.
Yeah, that's right. Made the whole series.
Brought it all together.
Yeah, I actually, as long as I was throwing in, And there are not very many people at the mix. It's just, me and Larry and Jerry and a mixer. And the guards are shuffling him off the stage. I said, hey, how about if we add the guard saying, that's it, show's over. Yeah, which Larry liked, but he didn't write that. So it's not going to be the last line of the series.
Of course.
So, but he did acknowledge, that's pretty good. No, we're not doing that.
You are in Cell Block D, which makes, I think George was in Cell Block D as well. So you possibly were sharing a cell with George Costanza.
That don't make me quone you.
Oh, man. Well, Jonathan, thanks again for being here. We're really excited to talk to you about your new album. You touched on it earlier, but did your time away from the show affect how you put together this Seinfeld soundtrack?
Absolutely. As a fan now, I was able to include only music that was identifiable and recognizable as a signature for a fan favorite Seinfeld scene. The only music that I included was music that was featured audio in one of those fan favorite scenes. And with that distance between then and now, I think I had a good viewpoint to make those decisions. I'm hoping that lots of folks are enjoying the record.
Well, we're two of them right here. We absolutely love it. And to actually have it without audience laughter and sound effects added on top of it, just these nice, clean takes is really amazing.
Well, I appreciate you saying so. A lot of soundtrack albums are loaded with artistic achievement and important, listening essential, momentous film score suites. Yeah, there's none of that on the Seinfeld soundtrack album. This music was all created to peg the funny meters. My opus magnum is a Big Daddy pimp walk.
Well, I figured, later on in the interview, towards the end, we could actually go through some of our favorite tracks with you and we could just chat about them. But before we do that, we'd actually like to hear a little bit about your time before Seinfeld. Could you tell us about your upbringing and how you got into music?
I was the music kid. I was no good at anything else. I once built a little bicycle device, but it crashed into a tree and sank in a puddle. Music it is. That's all I was ever good at. So my childhood was basically me finding my happy place by playing music, learning music, rehearsing music, playing in bands and ensembles. And that was my childhood. And it was pretty happy. And it gave me a lot of opportunity to express and grow and be artistic in a way that I felt at ease. I mean, everything about my life was music. I was certain that the songs on the radio were narrating my life, like Walter Mitty style. I got a lot of valuable professional experience young because I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky, which at the time was a rather small pond of musicians. And it gave me opportunities to work with and learn from the professional musicians around town. I had to join the union when I was 13 because I was working in the hotel lounges. And by 14, I was doing studio work for all the radio and TV stations. It gave me a lot of good practical on-the-job training for what would come next when I moved to LA at 17.
What were those early years like when you moved to LA leading up to, the late 80s when you started working on Seinfeld?
I moved to LA in 1976. As I said, I was 17, kind of like when Harry Potter turned 17. There's a whole movie about it where he had to leave because he was 17. Well, same thing for me. I just felt this calling to go to LA, this gravitational pull to head west. And I did. And for the next 10 years, the studios kept me busy working as a Swiss Army multi-purpose utility tool for musical chores. anything that remotely smelled like music, I would say yes to. So mostly during the day, I was a studio musician performing on other people's records and soundtracks and episodes and movie scores. And other than that, I would do these chores for the music studios, anything they needed. And some of those included little songwriting assignments and writing dance numbers, special material, things where the credit composer didn't have time or it wasn't in their wheelhouse. So that's how I spent the first 10 years there, was being a fix-it guy and sweeping up crumbs for music departments. And it was great. I enjoyed it. I encouraged it. I was thankful that these TV and movie studios had faith in my abilities, confidence in my professionalism, and they were kind to keep me working. I made a lot of money doing that. Owned 2 houses filled with gear in LA. But at a certain point, I realized that that is not a well-managed career, because every time the phone rang, the phone would dictate to me where to go and what to do when I got there. I had no control over which assignments I got, and more importantly, no idea long-term what my trajectory was. What would be the final spot where I would land as a professional? And so after 10 years, I took action to take control of my career. And it's kind of a long story, but at the end of it, I declared myself a composer. I sent letters to all those folks who had been so kind and generous and supportive for those 10 years. And in it, I thanked them for having such faith in me and for trusting me with their assignments. Now, stop that. I'm no longer available for your chores. I am a composer. Here's my new business. Call me. Let's do business. And then I held my breath, because I may have just nuked everything. Last 10 years of my life, scorched earth. But it was crazy. You guys, it's when those letters eventually arrived at their destinations all over Hollywood. Little switches flipped and people shrugged and said, gee, that's too bad. Wolff, he was a good utility guy. Okay. And they started throwing me songwriting assignments and scoring jobs and their terrible series that no one else wanted. And that is how my composing career began.
Yeah, it's amazing you had the bravery to, after 10 years of being an accomplished musician in LA, taking a step back and say, this isn't working for me, I want to do something else. So to have the bravery to go for it and overcome that fear is really impressive.
Well, it was a leap of faith, but I could look around me and see that there was an expiration date on being the hippest, coolest studio musician. And I knew that my expiration date was going to come at some point, and I needed something a little more long-lasting. And those composing and songwriting assignments that had happened during those 10 years, I kind of liked them. I liked that. And I'd done a couple of series during that where my chores job morphed into a composing job for the series. And I liked it. And I liked that I was earning royalties for that. That was important to me. And so I took those pieces of information and combined them together to decide that I really want to be a royalties earner, not a wage earner.
I had one additional question for you, Jonathan. I play drums in a cover band, and I dabble in guitar. I grew up playing music. But when we see features with you, you're usually behind a keyboard or a piano, and I see the mixer to your side there. Any other instruments you either grew up playing or have acquired along the way in your musical journey?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah, you knew people like me. You probably were a person like me that
aspiring to be like you.
Yeah, the local pawn shops knew me. They'd call me and they say, "Hey, we got a tenor sax in that you might like," or whatever instrument it was. And sure, I'd come down there and barter with them for it. So I played a lot of instruments before I arrived in LA. When I got to LA, I knew that it was time to get more serious about my primary instrument, which was piano.
Okay.
because the caliber of musicianship among the studio musicians in LA was nothing I had ever witnessed before. It was a little bit scary and intimidating how excellent my studio musician colleagues were. And I knew, boy, I can't pretend to be a trombone player here. I got to focus in on what I do.
So in the 80s, we were looking through your credits. Was Who's the Boss your first big series?
It was my first hit show, yeah. And Who's the Boss happened and almost right on its heels because it was kind of in the same family of production. They were both Columbia Pictures Television productions, and they were on adjacent stage. And I think they shared the same camera crew. Married with Children came soon after that. So yeah, those were my first two hit shows, which was good because if you're looking at that death list of failed show titles, I was like the Kevorkian of network TV. My win-loss ratio was terrible before that. I didn't mind doing all these loser shows because I knew I was meeting people and making connections and paying my dues as an entry-level composer. So I was really grateful when Who's the Boss and Married with Children cropped up, so at least I could have some gravitas in the trades.
So could you tell us a little bit about getting hired for Seinfeld and what that process was like?
Sure. During those chores years, occasionally there would be labor strikes because Hollywood is a union town. If any combination of strong unions, the actors, directors, teamsters, has a contract that renews at the same time as another one, it's a perfect storm for a work stoppage or a strike. And it happens occasionally in Hollywood. So every time that happened, I would take my thimble full of talent and my bag full of skills and take them on the road. And I would play rock concerts, or I eventually figured out I could write and conduct shows in Las Vegas for these show entertainers. And so I focused in on that for a while. Two of my Vegas acts, Dinah Ross and Tom Jones, shared the same opening act. A brilliant comedian named George Wallace.
Oh, we know him.
Oh, yeah. Everybody loves him. And he is just as wonderful as you think he is. He is just a lovable guy. And I started writing songs for his act. And I'd go out front before doing the main act, and I'd accompany him singing these dopey little songs in his act. And we made friends. And we'd walk around together, and we'd explore the town together. And whenever he came back to town, he'd buy me dinner, and I'd accompany him at the comedy clubs around LA. It turns out, years later, like 1989 or so, Jerry Seinfeld, in real life, has a best friend named George. It's George Wallace, my buddy. So when Jerry Seinfeld was complaining to George Wallace that he just wasn't getting the right music for his pilot at the time called the Seinfeld Chronicles, George Wallace said, "You got to call my buddy Wolff." And that is how I met Jerry Seinfeld, through our common friend, George Wallace. And Jerry called me.
What was your impression of the pilot? When you were brought in, did they kind of show you it as a way to kind of get you familiar with the kind of show they were making, or did they just sort of pitch you on a sound they were looking for?
Both good questions. Yes, I saw the pilot. I saw what my predecessor had done on the pilot. By the way, about that other composer who did the pilot before me, since I was not the first composer on the Seinfeld Chronicles, nothing but respect for this guy. Even in the big leagues, the best batters sometimes ground out. So he swung hard and missed. I'm just glad it was my turn next at bat. So yes, I saw the pilot. And when Jerry called me, he explained to me that the opening credits for this new show of his was going to be Jerry doing stand-up material in front of a small crowd of people in a club. He'll tell jokes, the people will laugh. And he wanted theme music to go with it. And I got to stop you there. That sounds like an audio conflict, because in the late 80s, early 90s, theme music was melodic. A lot of sassy saxophones and silly lyrics. Guilty, by the way. I created a lot of that kind of music. But it was not going to work in this phone call. So I said, Jerry, how about this? How about if we treat your human voice telling jokes as the melody of the Seinfeld theme, as if you're presenting lyrics to a song? My job will be to accompany those lyrics, your jokes, in a musical way that's fun and quirky and that will identify the show. Maybe the human organic quality of your human voice might go well with the human organic quality of noises I can make with my lips and tongue and finger snaps. Sampling technology was in its infancy. And man, I just really wanted to use it. So this seemed like a good opportunity. So I said, come on over. It was a Saturday. He called me. I was there at my office by myself. Come on over. I'll show you how this works. So I sampled lips and tongues and showed him how I could build a groove based on this that would work well with the audio of him doing stand-up. He brought with him some video of him doing stand-up. And he liked it, that it gave kind of a percolating undercurrent of energy to what he was doing. The slap bass, first of all, that instrument, that method of playing bass had not yet enjoyed celebrity status as a solo instrument. It was never a lead instrument. It was buried in funk music. I put it on the table, did terrible Frankenstein sample editing engineering to it, changed its DNA to be annoying and nasal, and featured it as an instrument that could weave in and out of his joke deliveries. The bass line itself is so simple and so basic that it does not require 4 beats to the bar. It does not even require meter to hold water. I could start and stop it to allow for Jerry's joke delivery. And just as the drummer in an old vaudeville show would hit rim shots to punctuate a joke, I could use the slap bass like that to move on and transition into the next joke. And in that way, I told Jerry, every monologue is different. Your jokes are always going to be different lengths, different timings, your pauses, and if you do any physical antics, are all going to be different. So I knew that I was committing to rebuilding a new piece of music, a new recording of this Seinfeld theme with its elements for every monologue. I treated it as if it was modularly manipulatable, like Legos, to fit each monologue. And that is how the theme was born.
I've been watching Seinfeld for almost 30 years now, and I don't think I've ever realized how unique each opening is.
Yeah, watch any 2 monologues and you'll see. There are also, Jerry tends, he's a musical comedian. His voice goes up and down and his mannerisms, and he likes to do physical comedy while he's telling jokes or while you're waiting for a punchline. I would use those rhythms to give me meter for each monologue. The tempo of each monologue was slightly different based on his speech patterns.
I too am disgusted with myself that I never picked up on you changing the theme with each episode in all my 30 years of viewing Seinfeld. So I'm just, I'm disgusted right now, sir.
Yeah, it's not like
you're a menace to society.
I'm out.
You're disturbed, you're depressed, you're inadequate, you got it all.
Thank you.
They should lock him up.
Yeah. I'm speechless. I'm without speech.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I guess now that I think about it, if you almost took out Jerry's stand-up and you just listen to each unique opening, it does have the rhythm of a stand-up. It does have the rhythm of jokes and when they land. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I'm a delicate genius.
Well, did everyone take to the theme the first they heard it in the first season? This is like 1990. There was I think a 4-episode order.
Yeah, that was
Confidence
the other
order.
That was the other thing. If he wasn't George Wallace's friend, I may have really shot myself in the foot. 4 episodes. That's not an order. That's an insult. In all of my years, and you saw my credits list, I was the composer for 75 primetime network TV series. And before that, during the chores years, I worked on hundreds of series, not hyperbole. In all those years, I never heard of an order as pitiful as 4 episodes. And yet here we were doing 4 episodes. Clearly, this network did not have a lot of confidence in this show. Still, I took it. I took the job. Now I've forgotten your question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did everyone take to the theme?
Well, that very day, that Saturday, when I created it, I did all the sampling and sample editing and built a short monologue for him. Jerry was totally into it. First of all, he had some ownership of it because he was there watching it. I think his friend Pat Hazel, who was a writer and did opening for our shows, he stopped by. And his girlfriend stopped by and brought us burritos. But mostly it was just he and I in the room. So he had buy-in. And so he liked it immediately. There was no Zoom, no Zencastr, none of that available at that time. So he called Larry David on the phone and held my office phone up to the speakers in my studio and played it for him over the speaker. And Larry approved it right then. He liked it. He got it. He understood it instantly, what I was going for, that I was going for a sonic brand, something that would instantly identify this show so that people from another room with their head in a refrigerator might hear this weird sound and go, what the heck? Let's watch that. A Pavlovian response would eventually grow. Ooh, that's Seinfeld. We love that show. Larry got all of that in the 20 seconds that he heard for the first time. And for that moment, I was done. I was good. Now, after those first 4 episodes, the network had a bunch of notes for the show. Well, for Larry and Jerry, and things they wanted changed to make the show better for the network. I was invited to this meeting because one of those items on the list was music. And since that's my only reason for being at the meeting, they addressed that first. I'm not saying it was the most important thing at the meeting. It's just I was there and they wanted to get me out of the room. So I was there with Jerry and Larry and our boss, Glenn Padnick from Castle Rock, wonderful man, and Warren Littlefield, whom I had total respect for, with whom I had done series before, and with whom I ended up doing 17 series during his era at NBC. So we were good. Warren and I were solid. But he had, let's say, questions about the music. And he said, what is that sound? Is that an instrument? Could we not afford real music? and he went on, and Larry's having none of this. Larry's scowling and, kind of looking off like he's bored. And Warren says, it's weird. It's distracting. It's annoying. And of course, Larry's ears perk up at that word. And he goes, what? It's annoying? Really? So I huddled with Jerry and Larry and Glenn and said, look, guys, they've got a list of things. Choose your battles. Jerry, you saw how quickly I can create a new theme for you. Give them this one. I'll create a different theme for you. You'll have it by the end of the day. And Larry, rather than being annoyed with the network, was furious at me for even suggesting that he might cave on any item on that list. And he starts yelling at me. What are you saying? You're done here, Wolff. Get out. And I looked at Glenn Padnick and he kind of shrugged and said, look, guys, whatever issues you have, I will go to war for you. That's my job here, to support you as creators. And I kind of said, what about me, Glenn? He said, you can leave. And the music stayed in the picture.
And so, that was really the end of it, right?
That was the end of it. The hero
wow.
of this particular story is Larry David. He should wear a cape.
Well, we do have to ask, because it's been on our mind for quite a while. And I believe we talked about it when we discussed the episode, but we'd like to hear it from you. What's the story behind the opening theme song for the season 3 premiere, The Note?
Yeah. I had no real Jones to create new music for that season of Seinfeld. I had a whole bunch of other shows going on. And to be honest, Seinfeld didn't even have a time slot yet. So when Jerry suggested to me, in honor of the new season, to give a sparkle to the theme, and he's the one that suggested maybe some scat vocals to the music. This is the first time Jerry or anyone on Seinfeld had made any real suggestions to me about the music. Up to this point, it was just me creating what I thought was my best foot forward. And I said, sure, why not? So the lyrics were nonsense, non-English, gibberish, as Jay Peterman would say. The singers were me and my friend, Angie Giray. I didn't love the new added element, but hey, I had 9 other series to crank out, so I was too busy to obsess about it. Seinfeld still had no audience and no permanent time slot, so it seemed to matter very little to me if I added weird scat vocals to the monologues. The network and studio execs, well, before that, at the mix, when I brought in these vocals, Jerry said, yeah, kind of like that. And Larry David kind of shrugged and said, okay, let's try it. All good. We went ahead and mixed 3 episodes with the added gibberish vocals before the first one, The Note, aired. Clearly, the network and studio execs weren't even watching their final mixed tapes of this show before it aired, because these network and studio execs who were not consulted concerning the added vocals finally saw 301, The Note, and did not like the vocals. Plus, they did not like that they weren't consulted first, which is a valid point, okay? Mm-hmm. So, when it came down, I confessed to Larry and Jerry, I don't love them either. And we can instantly retrofit those episodes with pre-vocal music and move on with our lives. This is not one we should really fight. So we remixed episodes 2 and 3 with normal Seinfeld music. But since The Note had already aired, the scat vocals still remain in this one episode.
Well, it's one of those things that I'm really glad it happened, because it's a little bit of a mystery.
It's folklore, I'll tell you,
yeah, really. I'm sure you can go on Wikipedia and you can read a lot of different theories about, their lyrics, easy to beat.
There's none of that.
I think you referred earlier of people looking in their fridge, they hear something on the television, they turn their head, but when somebody hears, hey, they'll look at the television.
I thought so. Hey, and you sang that very well, by the way.
Thank you, Jonathan. Matt and I quote Seinfeld all the time, as you know, but this is one of our quotes, so we have you to thank for that. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Now, here's the deal. People ask me, why wasn't a recording of that included on the Seinfeld soundtrack album? And it's a valid question, because the end credits version of my Seinfeld theme with vocals was clean. Kind of like the version of the original Seinfeld theme you hear on the record. It's not pausing for Jerry's jokes or anything. It just plays straight through. I did create that. But in that one episode, The Note, the end credits music of that episode was Joltin' Joe DiMaggio. So
that's right.
The end credits version of my Seinfeld theme with vocals was never heard on TV. Probably a good thing, okay? But what that means is at the end of the season, when I turned all my materials over to Castle Rock, and remember, season 3 was this 1992 or something, I was still using open reel tapes. I didn't really have backups of this stuff. It was a blip on the screen. It got thrown out. I had no reason to really keep it. I turned it all over to the studio, and the whereabouts of those masters is unknown.
Oh.
So, Jonathan, what you're saying is the Seinfeld theme with the end credits with vocals is in the vault?
Yeah. But nobody knows where the vault is.
Just checking.
So, yeah, because I did check on that. I thought that'd be fun for Seinfeld fans to, let's throw that in there just for the kitsch of it. Mm-hmm. And I would have put that on there. That's about the only piece of music that I would have put on had I had access to it that I didn't get to. The rest of the album I'm happy with.
Could you kind of walk us through a typical work week at Seinfeld? Sort of like, who did you report to when you were sort of assigned to write a piece of music that wasn't the Seinfeld theme? Were you given sort of direction, or did you just sort of get to come up with whatever you wanted?
Sometimes I would get instruction, like especially if I asked for it from the writer. Usually I'd go to whoever wrote the episode and say, here's what I'm thinking. Work for you? Or if it was clear, if it was obvious, or if it wasn't even in the script, but I knew we could throw music in, I would just do it on my own. Like, when they're at a hockey game and Putty's banging on the glass, of course I'm going to play arena organ because it's fun. Things like that. Or if they go into a restaurant or a bar, of course I'm going to put tinkly piano in the background or a jukebox music coming out of it. I didn't need a direction from anyone for that. But occasionally there were special materials that I needed some instruction on. Like pick a track from the album.
Great, yeah, I'd love to
get
do
specific.
That. Let's play something that I'm a huge fan of, Kramer's crappy banjo music, which we heard at the top. Let's play it again here.
My memory of that is that Spike mentioned it to me. That, I just something really bad and awful and weird, like bad banjo music. And so that particular one it was instruction from Spike. Sure, I can connect dots. By the way, that whole episode, the Muffin Tops, was kind of a bad music are us episode. Besides the awful recorded twangy banjo mouth harp for Kramer's Peterman reality bus tour, which I love, by the way. When I say bad music, that's not necessarily an insult. That's a badge of honor. I also did corny werewolf terror music stings for when Jerry's chest hair grows. Guilty. It's like the work I did on Married with Children. It had to be kind of over the top. And I'll take this opportunity to give apologies to Ennio Morricone, who scored Wolff, the movie on which it was spoofing. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm a very bad man. That episode was fun. Sonia Eddy was in that episode. Remember, she was also in the bookstore. She was the woman who they tried to give the muffin tops to a food bank or something.
Of course, Rebecca De Mornay.
Rebecca De Mornay, yeah. Besides being a powerful and skilled actor, Sonia is also an awesome vocalist. Look up her singing videos sometime. Sonia played wonderful guest roles on 2 of my other shows. for which I composed the music, Married with Children, and Reba. And she played kind of a similar character, a bossy clerical worker. And, oh, by the way, plus, Sonia and I both worked on Larry David's terrible movie, Sour Grapes. Hey, listen, Sonia, if you're listening to this, let's agree to not talk about that one further, okay?
Vinny and I were chatting earlier. Vinny, you just watched the trailer from Sour Grapes?
I did, just to kind of get in the mood of what we're going to talk about, but I did watch the trailer.
Yeah, you're the one.
Yeah, your count went up by 1 today. You're welcome.
Well, Jonathan, since we're starting to, talk about some tracks on the album, maybe we could go through some of our favorites.
Please.
Go back and forth here. Vinny, if you don't mind, I wanted to start off with one of my favorite pieces of music on the album from one of my favorite episodes of all time. This is the Jerry Show theme from the pilot part 2, the season 4 finale.
That one, I actually did go to Larry Charles to ask him. I don't know, maybe I passed him in the hall or something, and he had full authority to make whatever decisions he wanted. So he described these opening credits as typical, generic, silly, happy sitcom. So that was my inspiration for that. Larry David wrote that script, by the way.
Yes.
So yeah, I was, as I mentioned before, I've done plenty of that kind of music. I can do it for this one. And hopefully the irony of it wasn't lost on Seinfeld viewers, that this was the silly, ridiculous, stupid, happy sitcom bizarro version of the real Seinfeld theme.
Oh, it's just the best. I mean, that paired with the font they use for the opening credits.
Yeah.
Every character gets their moment.
Yeah.
The sets, they all have that cheesiness. And you mentioned earlier the sassy saxophone. Like, that's what you put into that.
I'm not proud. I'll do that.
Oh, man.
In the melodies and the sing-songiness of it, it was all good. There was that was when I first met Mariska Hargitay on that episode. Long before Law and Order, she came onto our Seinfeld stage as a guest star in the role of auditioning for the part of Elaine in the casting scenes for the Jerry Show. I know there's a lot of mega stuff going on here. And she was amazing. And right after that, I did a terrible series with Mariska called Can't Hurry Love. And just like Sonia, she and I have wisely agreed to not talk about that one. Yeah, that episode was loaded. Larry Hankin, the guy who played the actor playing Kramer. Yeah, he's a Hollywood veteran, funny guy. I'd worked with him on a bunch of my shows. He's, of course, on Married with Children, the Tony Danza show. Gina Hecht, who had a recurring role as Dana the therapist, was in that episode. A few years later, I was the composer on another series with Carol Leifer, the Seinfeld writer. And this one was Carol's show. She starred in it and she execed it and did a great job on it. The show just never really clicked. It was called All Right Already, and Gina was on that one too.
I remember we'd sometimes go through cast and crew credits on Seincast, and Vinny, you liked reading off her show title. I remember that.
Loved it.
You would shout it. You go, "All right, already."
Exactly. I really did enjoy working with Carol. She wrote The Rye.
Speaking of The Rye, Jonathan, I'd like to turn your attention to the John Germain section. One wonders if the track titled John Germain Jazz No. 2 featuring Bob Shepard would be more popular if it was listed under its original title, Hot and Heavy.
Probably true, because that is hot and heavy. The truth is, I created, 4 or 5 pieces like that. I'd seen in the script. By the way, Carol's original script, an important side note for the Bible from her was that John Germain really needs to be accepted as a true jazz killer. I mean, he is just an awesome, amazing player that people would just revere as a great jazz player. That was important to her at the time when she first wrote it. So there were more scenes where he's performing. They made a bigger deal of it at first. So I created 4 or 5 of these jazz pieces. Those scenes mostly went bye-bye, and the importance of John Germain being a great jazz giant went bye-bye too. Really wasn't important whether he was any good or not. But I was left with all these really good recordings of jazz music that I wanted to include on the Seinfeld soundtrack album because I really have warm fuzzies for them. And I want Seinfeld fans to remember why in the episode at the end he was unable to perform on his saxophone. Clearly, these tracks from the album were recorded before John Germain added to his repertoire.
So music typically is added in post when they put together an episode, but were there ever times where you, Jonathan, were needed to be on set to perform a song, or maybe some music you had recorded needed to be played for the audience?
Of course. The John Germain jazz I recorded before we shot it. You get the script usually the night before the table read, so you can prep whatever you need to prep for the production meeting that day. And for the set builders, they get it probably a week before. So each of the department heads has a little bit of time to get ready for that production meeting. And she had mentioned to me in advance that this show was coming up to just kind of warn me that I was going to need to create some serious jazz. So when I got the script the night before, I went ahead, wrote the music that night, set up the session for midday the next day after the production meeting. So that music was recorded in advance, and anytime it would help the audience along to hear the music, I would record it in advance. Obviously, anytime that the actors, directors, camera operators needed to use the music while shooting the scene, I recorded in advance. For example, Rochelle the musical. Actor comes out, sing. The understudy comes out and sings, and I had to record that in advance so she could sing along to it. I got a call from Larry David who said, hey, we're doing Rochelle the musical. I need you to write an opening song. And so I've got basic questions. I said, well, how long is this opening production number going to be? And she goes, oh, it doesn't matter. She'll be too weepy to get past the first line. So I wrote this song knowing that we were never going to get through it because Larry never intended for it. But that's an example of music that needs to be created in advance. It's on, you've heard that instrumental version on the soundtrack album because I think that was a really funny scene. For a lot of Seinfeld fans who are younger than I am, they have no real memory of Tanya Harding's bootlace. At the time, the weepy Tanya Harding reference was really funny. But since Tanya and her bootlace has faded from pop culture memory, it's just another funny scene about nothing. There were those moments where, of course, I created music in advance, and you asked, did I ever go to the stage? Yes, when music was critical to the scene, I would go to the stage. Here was a good day at work. The day I went to the stage to record Mel Torme, I accompanied him on piano live in front of the audience. That was a fun day.
Vinny loves the Velvet Fog.
Yeah. Jonathan likes accompanying Mel Torme.
When it came to Rochelle the musical, you said that Larry told you about the idea and you came up with the melody. And then in the episode prior to that scene, Bette Midler sings in the hospital.
Yeah.
Was she given the melody then?
Yes, but she ignored it.
Oh.
I'm not going to get, strict on Bette Midler. So I let her just sing whatever you sing. It's fine. She sort of sang my melody, but it's okay. Didn't matter.
Okay. Got it. Vinny, is there another track off the album you'd like to talk about?
So Matt and I were discussing before you got on how much we love the Christian rock song featuring Jack Diamond, "Jesus is One," from The Burning.
Jesus is one, Jesus is all. Jesus pick me up when I fall.
First of all, Jack was my stalwart music editor for decades, I guess. I mean, always and always. And my staff at my company all wore multiple hats, and they were all ridiculously talented people. And I had a couple of world-class studio singers on my staff, including Jack, who sang on probably several episodes of Seinfeld. I don't remember. Shortly after we shot this episode, I noticed folks on the Seinfeld set looking with disappointment at my not complicated shoes. I guess I'm not so hip. But after The Burning aired, folks kept writing to me requesting recordings of those Christian rock recordings. And
They're very hip.
I don't know. Elaine is surfing Putty's car radio station presets so quickly, I only created a few seconds of each of those other songs. Putty would say, "Bogus, man." So that alone was reason enough for me to include Jesus is One, because people seem to want to own it. They can play it on their own car radios or stick it on there to goof with their girlfriends. That's his whole album, by the way. I have ridiculous fantasies of Seinfeld fans playing Kramer's boombox music from the George Underwear photo shoot and creating their own photo shoot videos. Lover boy, feel the beat videos, and sticking them on Instagram and TikTok.
It's funny you mentioned that, Jonathan, because years ago when Seinfeld was coming to Hulu and they set up the pop-up apartment in New York, Matt and I attended, and they had the couch set up for you to take pictures. And a couple people were brave enough to take off a shirt or do something and recreate the photo. Matt convinced me to bear down to my undies and socks. And I felt the fear. I went for it, and I did get on there. I didn't have your music, though, so it wasn't the best day.
I'm glad that you are already in the mood for that. So
thank you.
And I'm sure, something tells me, Vinny, you did not need a lot of convincing.
I got a couple looks. It was pretty good.
Yeah, good. But that is the purpose. That is to have fun. That I want people to throw a Seinfeld themed party and play this, get jiggy with it. It is about having fun and happy memories of these moments on Seinfeld. Maybe going back and watching those episodes with a different view of the scene, now having heard the music up front. As the show progressed further and further into higher number of seasons, the writers and producers invited me to throw in more often into scenes. And there were a couple of Seinfeld tropes that involved music. For example, chase scenes that recurred often on Seinfeld. So I even included a couple of those chase scenes. You mentioned it at the top of the show, the Jerry chasing Newman through the building, that Mission Impossible like underscore. And I also included the cable guy chasing Kramer. I treated those chase scenes as if they were cinematic action chases from real movies, as a counterbalance to how silly the chases on screen were. So I got to throw in with a bunch of those. It was just a really wonderful, eclectic job for me. And there were all those fake productions that were heard but never seen. We went into movie theaters a lot. Not just, you mentioned we already talked about the Jerry Show, which was a fake show. I actually did a fake Tonight Show theme with Jay Leno for when in The Trip. And there are all these, the Scarsdale Surprise theme was a fake theme for a fake musical, fake producers at a fake award show. Fake. Gotta admit, I was a bit disappointed that for the Summer of George, that I didn't get to compose that tap number for Raquel. There's a storyline about her not moving her arms.
There's a lot of this,
which was a reason for us to have Molly Shannon on, by the way. But there are all these fake productions for which I created music like Channel and Checkmate, Flaming Globes of Sigmund, which is probably my favorite because of Larry was in it, Death Blow and Cry Cry Again. And so I included a couple of music suites on this record that includes some of those more featured movies like Checkmate, Channel, and Death Blow. They were all recorded at the same time to chew off of for music, depending on what scene might be playing in the movie theater, in the movie, or the pool guy, or the Little Kicks. And for the Puerto Rican Day Parade, a guy who worked for me for many years and had grown to earn a composer title at my company, he and I collaborated on the dramatic underscore for Blimp, as if it was a real film, and we hear it a lot in the theater. So I included that one on the record too.
Well, Jonathan, since you were, mentioning some movie themes, something I'm really curious about is in a track like, it always makes me laugh, Noxon from the Cadillac Part 2. How do you compose a piece of music that's supposed to remind people of a movie, but really make it your own?
By the way, the Cadillac Part 2 was also the episode for the Kramer cable guy chase scene. So
that's right.
It's kind of a busy episode for me. And our Nixon pastiche, the one you're asking about, which allowed me to throw in as Morty and family leave the impeached and disgraced president's home with quiet, regal dignity. Of course, I'm familiar with John Williams' work on Nixon. I'm familiar with every microsecond of John Williams' work. He is an idol and a hero and a mentor to me. And his work on Nixon was brilliant. And I thought he did a good job of that regal dignity in the face of just absolute disaster. And so I used that as a touchstone for creating the music Noxon. You'll notice it has no musical resemblance at all to the Nixon music, but it was a nod in his direction, the attitude that I assumed for it. And I knew that it was going to be a long scene, and a lot of it, no dialogue. So I took this as an opportunity that I'm going to play the rest of the episode out. And I treated it pretty seriously. It was presidential and regal, and yet it was somber and had kind of a gallows drum rhythm to it. It was a good assignment for me, a happy memory. And since it was so heavily featured in the episode, I included it on the Seinfeld original soundtrack album. Thanks for asking about it.
think about how it might be the longest piece of music on Seinfeld with no dialogue, no sound effects.
Could be. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, there were I created a lot of music that just simply didn't get used. For example, in the Chinese restaurant, I didn't ask anybody. I just did it. I created, I think, 17 minutes of kind of Chinese restaurant sounding stuff. And we mixed the show with it in. And just at the very last second, Larry said, let me hear it without. And he kind of liked the starkness of it without. There's something about the discomfort of silence in the background that he liked. So that would have been the longest running music on Seinfeld for sure, because it was wall to wall in this restaurant. I really didn't weigh music by the pound, but yeah, it's that was probably a long exposition of music on that, and I was kind of proud of it. So thanks for noticing. The suitcase montage in the finale was kind of a long piece of music too, because we had to introduce each of those guest cast again, grabbing their suitcase and running out the door to the trial. And there was no dialogue in that.
I love that montage music, actually. Not because of the critical response to the finale, just knowing it's the end of the show. I always found it to be a bit of a downer. Yeah. And I'm not kidding. That music, that montage music, just gives the episode just a nice lift up emotionally for me.
Believe me, I was thinking about that. I'm going to be ridiculously happy on this, because if there is joy in this episode, it's the joy, the schadenfreude of all these characters who hate Jerry and Elaine and Kramer and George, just so gleeful that they're going to get to go watch them get what's coming to them, that I use that as an opportunity to be really silly and upbeat and to play some piano, which I didn't do a lot of on Seinfeld. So yeah, thanks for noticing that. And even though there were at the time mixed reviews of the finale, I think everyone was in agreement that montage, seeing all these beloved guest characters reintroduced into Seinfeld, was a happy moment for everybody.
Absolutely. Genius way to bring all these characters back.
Yeah, we had another, also on the soundtrack album, is the Waiting for the Verdict Blues, which had some really funny bits in it. My favorite was with the soup Nazis there. Larry's there, the soup Nazi, and he's serving soup to everybody, and Poppy asks for some salt or pepper for it. He grabs the soup away. No soup for you. There was some really funny bits in that, but I did treat it with a slow blues, a slow harmonica guitar blues.
I had a question about the track Pure Contemplation.
Sure.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
It was a recurring comedy device. George or Jerry sitting at the pier in deep thought. Always without dialogue, and always with contemplative, pensive, introspective music underscore, which I included on the soundtrack for its recognizable callback to those scenes. Okay, here's a little bit of Seinfeld trivia. In the invitations, which includes one of those pier scenes, there's a very un-Seinfeld-like, sweet, romantic montage of Jerry romancing his female equivalent, played by Janine Garofalo.
Mm-hmm.
I reused my romantic, sultry tenor sax recording of You Stepped Out of a Dream for that montage. I first created that recording as introspective music underscore for George's sitting at the pier in deep thought in an earlier season 7 episode, The Engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we want to go further down the Seinfeld music trivia rabbit hole.
Please.
Yeah, go along.
That same studio sax genius who you mentioned his name before, Bob Shepard, was featured on that recording too.
Oh, nice.
Now, he's not just on the jazz recordings in the Rye.
One of the reasons I love it, and I love the album as a whole, is I'm just immediately there.
Yeah.
Just wanting to sit around, just look at people, look at happy families and couples walking around.
Yeah, that is exactly the point of this entire album, is to bring back warm fuzzies of scenes that you watched on Seinfeld. I get emails all the time from people now who say they listen to the album and they envision the scenes in their head. And sometimes they envision themselves in the scenes, and sometimes they make TikToks with themselves in it doing the scene. And that to me makes me so happy that these folks are doing that.
Well, I think the song that's probably going to get the most mileage out of it, especially because it doesn't come with the lyrics. This is George's answering machine message from the Susie.
All right, there's a story on that. Warner Brothers, the record label for soundtracks is called Water Tower Music. And when their lawyers reached out to me and said, all right, can you first, before we get too deep into this, give us a playlist. What would be on this record? And so I gave them the playlist, and The Answering Machine was not on it because I did not create that music. That song is not my song. It's the Greatest American Hero theme song, which is a wonderful theme song, but I didn't write it. So I left it off because I didn't want to have to deal with explaining to the lawyers why they needed to reach out to those lawyers and get a mechanical deal to include it on the record. I just left it off, even though it fit the criterion for the record. It's a musical moment. Music was the only audio going on. It's a funny scene. It's a beloved scene. It should be on the record, except I didn't create it. So I left it off, but the lawyers, this is not even the record company, it's the lawyers went, what about The Answering Machine? And since they opened that door, I said, okay, since you asked, I did create that instrumental track, the recording that Jason sang along with. I did record it. I still have it. And if you can make a deal with the Greatest American Hero people, let's include the instrumental tracks on the soundtrack as a bonus track and let people create their own voicemail recordings of it. And that's how it got put on. It wasn't my idea in the first place. It was the lawyers. I'm so glad that they did.
Thank you to those lawyers.
Yeah, yes, there's a part of me that wants to be territorial and jealously protect the real estate on this record as being only music that I created. But come on, that scene is just too funny and iconic to leave off the record.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us to talk about the album today. Before we wrap things up, we had a couple of quick questions for you.
Sure.
We're trying to get some insight into the little man inside you and what he thinks regarding Seinfeld. So if you'll just indulge us, these are kind of rapid fire. It's a this or that.
My little man is an idiot.
Here we go.
The amount of Seinfeld references that you have dropped in this interview alone, I don't think you'll have any trouble answering these questions.
It's my allure, my twinkle.
Should I lead it off, Matt?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Jonathan, here we go. Question 1. Chocolate or cinnamon babka?
At my age, if I want a Chip Ahoy, I'm having it.
He's only got a couple good years left, Matt.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, when you're on the road, you're staying in a hotel, bed sheets. You going to ask for a tuck or a no tuck?
There's good naked and there's bad naked. I sleep naked. No sheets.
Oh.
Let's talk some baseball. Yankees or Mets?
You know, I'm going to root for the improv team.
Excellent.
Wait, wasn't that the team?
Yeah.
In the understudy was the improv. Okay.
Yep.
Versus Rochelle the musical, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if they ever actually said the word improv, but it was on the jerseys. So
I've always wanted that shirt. I love that.
Same.
Hey, I still have my Mets Seinfeld jacket.
That's awesome. Jonathan, do you dunk your donut?
If it's good enough for Joe DiMaggio, good enough for me. I'm a dunker.
And my last question for you, Jonathan. Do you love the Drake or do you hate the Drake?
I'm a hipster doofus. I love everyone. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Thank you, Jonathan, for indulging us with those silly questions.
He's a good sport.
Before we say goodbye, is there anything else you'd like to plug?
Nah, you guys are awesome. I'm just really happy that you received my email in the spirit that it was intended, that Seinfeld fans really do enjoy Seincast. And I'm so glad that you're allowing me the opportunity to be part of that wonderful podcast. Hey, nobody's asked me about Netflix yet.
Oh,
We got time.
what do you have to say?
You might have to insert this earlier. Here's the real story of what happened. Upon learning about the July Seinfeld soundtrack album release, the Netflix execs, in a panic, retreated into the safety of their doomsday bunkers. They knew that a sea of humanity, millions of Seincast listeners, would form into a giant tidal wave of hysteria, clamoring to purchase the Seinfeld soundtrack album, because streaming episodes simply could not compete with the soundtrack album release. Netflix decided to delay streaming Seinfeld episodes until every Seincast listener had bought the Seinfeld original soundtrack album.
That's impressive.
Jonathan, where can listeners find you online? Any social media?
I do. Thanks for asking. And it could use some love. My social media handle, it's very subtle. Seinfeld Music Guy. But yeah, you can reach out to me anytime. I love hearing from Seinfeld fans. Give me a follow, because like I said, my following is pitiful. I retired in 2005 before any of this stuff existed. So I'm terrible at it, but I really enjoy it. And when I'm left home alone and unsupervised at my house, I'll sit down at my piano and I'll hit record on camera and I'll play and I'll blather and prattle and put it up on Instagram. And folks seem to like it.
Keep doing what you're doing. We love it as well.
Thank you, guys. Matt, Vinny, what a pleasure.
It was a pleasure for us too, Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining us.
This has been a super terrific happy hour.
You must go now.
I'll go now. Bye.